3 corpses with eerie death poses were seen kneeling on the ground, hands raised high. Their faces were filled with terror, as if they were worshipping something. How did these 3 die? Upon hearing this, Robert sighed helplessly. Recently, at Gabriel's mine, they unearthed an ancient tomb. These are the workers who were involved in the excavation. One of them is even an expert sent by the provincial government. As he spoke, his tone lowered involuntarily. And this matter is quite eerie. 3 lives were lost overnight. The bodies all turned out like this. Just as the 2 were talking, a middle-aged man wearing traditional clothing and thick glasses walked in. I am in charge of this archaeological work. You can call me Professor Martin. Feel free to ask me about the details of this matter. Looking at Professor Martin Pax in front of me, I didn't expect it. Although he looks a bit serious and old-fashioned, his mind is quite flexible. But before Pax could ask, Professor Martin continued, if you have truly discovered any problems, even if it means stopping the archaeological work, we cannot continue digging. After all, human lives are at stake. Upon hearing this, Pax couldn't help but admire. You really have a profound sense of righteousness. However, Professor Martin just smiled slightly and said, let's skip the pleasantries. I'll take you to see our 3 colleagues first. When they arrived in front of the corpse, Nicholas, scared, quickly hid behind Pax. This is too creepy. However, Professor Martin patted the corpse's arm with his hand. When we found these 3 comrades, they were already like this. The body was as if filled with concrete, completely stiff. There was not a single injury on it. There were also no signs of a struggle at the scene. At the mention of it, Pax couldn't help but feel a bit stunned, as if he had thought of something. This kind of death state was mentioned in the biopsy given by the Taoist. He quickly turned his head to look at Robert beside him, and asked him to check on something. Upon hearing Pax's request, Robert immediately agreed and put on gloves. He walked up to the body, and after reaching his hand into the mouth and feeling around, he did indeed find a hole in the upper jaw. This discovery astonished Robert, as the hole was indeed thicker than a finger. Upon hearing this, Nicholas asked with a serious expression, do you know how they died? Pax shook his head, indicating that it was not certain yet, and they would need to go to the ancient tomb to find out. Upon hearing this, Professor Martin awkwardly walked up to Pax and said without fear of being laughed at, we've been digging for 3 days, and still haven't found the entrance to the tomb chamber. No problem. Let's just focus on the section we're currently excavating. It's getting dark soon, and we won't have time once the sun sets. Professor Martin stared at Pax for a moment before nodding. Then follow me. After everyone left the shed where the bodies were stored, it suddenly started snowing heavily outside. Dark clouds in the sky rolled together, forming a large hole that emitted a faint golden light, resembling a giant golden eye overlooking the entire mine. Soon, Pax and the group arrived at the entrance of the cave where the ancient tomb was being excavated, but they all fell silent one after another, as they walked into the long, pitch-black passage inside the cave. Nicholas couldn't help but break the silence. Professor, you guys are too impressive. You managed to dig such a big hole in just 3 days. This efficiency is way too high. If my workers could have this efficiency at home, imagine how much money my dad would make. Upon hearing this, Professor Martin couldn't help but smile awkwardly. We don't have that much energy. Actually, these things were already here. Don't believe me? Just take a look at the murals on both sides. Professor Martin then shone his flashlight on the wall as he spoke. The first mural was somewhat normal, but the further he shone the light, the more bizarre it became. It seemed like soldiers were killing a large group of prisoners of war, chopping off their heads, and collecting the blood in a jar. There were also a few people wearing strange costumes. They were dancing around the jar in ways that normal people couldn't possibly move. Seeing this scene, Pax was instantly filled with terror. The mural depicted one of the world's top 10 horrifying customs, the ancient human sacrifice ritual. At this moment, Professor Martin, who was behind him, also stepped forward. With a serious expression, He stared at the mural on the wall depicting the extremely bloody and brutal human sacrifice ritual. Upon hearing this, Pax finally slowly regained his composure. That's right. The ancients believed that everything in the universe was controlled by the gods. Therefore, when people performed sacrificial rituals, they used the lives of others as offerings to the gods in the hope of receiving their blessings. But before Pax could finish his words, Nicholas on the side curiously asked, "Where are the gods?" Upon hearing this, Pax shook his head helplessly. You will know by looking at the murals on the wall. Only the last mural depicted a strange creature. Its face resembled that of a human, but it held a bloody human head in its mouth and had intestines hanging from its legs. Its body was tiger-like, with black and yellow stripes. Surrounding it were many people constantly bowing down to worship this creature. Seeing this scene, Nicholas still looked puzzled. Is this creature being worshipped as a deity by people? But it's clearly just a deformed tiger. However, Pax did not respond. He just stared grimly at the mural on the wall. Just now, Pax guessed it. How did those 3 archaeologists die? But he wasn't quite sure. It wasn't until he saw this mural that he really became certain. Who was the murderer of those 3 archaeologists? I guessed right. It was indeed the large-bellied insect. Upon hearing this, Professor Martin also recalled the origin of this monster. It is a type of ancient exotic beast recorded in the classic of mountains and seas. It has a human-like body, but with tiger stripes, and always has a large intestine hanging from its legs. Upon hearing Professor Martin's explanation, Pax couldn't help but praise his breadth of knowledge and talent. Just as Pax finished speaking, Robert on the side immediately shone a flashlight with a grave expression on his face at the remaining murals. Could it be that the 3 archaeologists who died yesterday were killed by this thing? Pax shook his head to indicate that it wasn't the case. The large-bellied insect is just a legendary ancient beast. It has never appeared in reality. But later, there were Taoist practitioners who cultivated secret arts. They refined a kind of goo insect resembling the large-bellied insect, which was later named large-bellied insect by later generations. And although it is only the size of a fingernail, it is extremely hard. Not only is it impervious to knives and spears, but it is also invulnerable to water and fire. And what it loves to eat the most is human brains. They burrow in through the roof of the mouth, suck up the brain, and lay eggs to reproduce inside. At this, Robert and Professor Martin were horrified. So you're saying those 3 comrades, who died yesterday, were parasitized by these monsters? We can't stay here, we must hurry back. We need to find a way to kill them before the monsters fully grow. With that, the 2 turned to leave. At this moment, Pax stopped Robert and said, "Don't rush. It takes at least 10 years for the insect eggs to grow into adult parasites. Also, the eggs are very fragile and easily killed. Let's take another look at the situation in the tomb before deciding our next move." Upon hearing this, Robert finally felt relieved. Shortly after, the group started shining flashlights and continued walking towards the depths of the tomb. The lead, Professor Martin, reminded them, "The corpse wall mentioned earlier is just ahead. It's very eerie, so be mentally prepared." However, Nicholas remained unfazed, saying, "Professor, don't underestimate me. I've seen a lot in my days. I have not only punched evil ghosts with Pax, but also kicked the living dead. I even have 8 female ghost wives. You can't scare us." But before he could finish boasting, the next second, because he was not paying attention to the road, he crashed into the wall with a bang. Looking up, he was instantly scared out of his wits by the scene before him. He looked ahead with a terrified expression, only to see grimacing faces appearing on the wall. These faces were all dried up with wide-open mouths, looking like they were either begging or howling in sorrow. He quickly hid behind Pax. "There are ghosts." Pax was speechless. "Weren't you bragging about how powerful you were just now? Now you're scared like this by these completely dead skeletons." On the other hand, Professor Martin, although having seen the corpse wall a few times, also seemed somewhat unaccustomed. His voice trembling, he said, According to our research in the past few days, these people were built into the wall while they were still alive. Based on the current excavation situation, the wall is at least 3 meters thick and 10 meters high. The length is still immeasurable, but what has been cleared so far is over 8,000 meters. After hearing this, Nicholas couldn't help but take a deep breath. How many people have been harmed by this? Upon hearing this, Professor Martin couldn't help but sigh. The number of deaths we have included in the statistics is at least more than 20,000 people. Upon hearing this, Pax quickly took out the compass and started to explore, only to see the pointer turning steadily. Nicholas also crowded around him. How do you find the ghost? Pax shook his head to indicate he hadn't found it. The energy around here is very heavy. But the compass needle didn't point to any dirt, which made Robert puzzled. Since there is no dirt, it means that the harmful thing is that large-bellied insect. Let's seal this place up. But before he could finish speaking, outside the cave, Nicholas suddenly exclaimed, "Look, there's something flying in the sky!" Hearing this, Pax and the others hurriedly ran outside the cave. By this time, the wind and snow outside were obviously stronger than before. As everyone looked up at the sky, their faces were filled with disbelief. In the terrifying giant eye formed by swirling dark clouds, 2 pale paper men were floating down with the wind. They also emitted eerie, cackling laughter from their mouths. Nicholas was shocked to see this scene. Has this paper man become alive and able to fly in the air? But Pax does not think so. First, there was a giant blood eye in the sky. And now even ghost skin has arrived. And this kind of thing is most sensitive to death chi. Many people will surely die tragic deaths wherever they appear. Thinking of this, Pax quickly turned to Robert and urged, "Make sure everyone is extra careful tonight. And let's not leave anyone to guard this cave. It would be best to seal off the entrance. Tonight might not be peaceful." On the side, Professor Martin fully believed what Pax said. "I'll go give the orders. We've already lost 3 comrades. We can't afford any more accidents." With that, he called for Robert and hurried towards the workshop. And after the 2 of them disappeared, Nicholas smirked and put his hand on Pax's shoulder. "Are you preparing to conduct some ritual when they return?" Upon hearing this, Pax was taken aback. "What ritual are you talking about?" "Just like in the movies. Set up an altar, put on a Taoist robe, hold a peachwood sword, make some gestures, and all the demons and ghosts will be taken care of." This made Pax speechless. "I don't know how to do that." But Nicholas was not giving up. What about drawing protective talismans, setting up formations, or sprinkling black dog blood? However, Pax shook their head, indicating that they didn't know how to do any of those either. "But I just learned a 5 Thunder Night Breaking Array. I am not sure how effective it is." Nicholas was completely dumbfounded when he heard this. "No way, you don't know anything. Isn't this just throwing your life away for nothing? Let's run fast." As he spoke, he pulled Pax towards the exit. But Pax pushed him away. "What about the others here if we run away?" Upon hearing this, Nicholas said helplessly, "What else can we do but run away together? If they don't listen to us, there's nothing we can do. Even if we go back home now and ask Granny, it would be too late." This made Pax unable to help but start pondering. At this moment, he suddenly thought of something. "Right. We can go into the mountains to ask the immortal for help." The man just lightly tapped his foot. He actually called out all the rats on the entire mountain. They not only obey him completely. He can command billions of rats to fight for him with just one command from a man. So men are one of the 5 great immortals, rat. He also packs this time to go into the mountain to help suppress the ghost immortal of the Wall of Corpses. But at the beginning, Nicholas was very skeptical. "Boss, are you sure there really are immortals nearby? My dad goes, rumble rumble, around here every day. He's been mining for years. I've never seen any immortals come out to beat him up." But Pax can't be bothered to pay attention to him. He just looks around on his own, searching everywhere. We split up to look for small animals. As long as they have a spiritual presence and are not afraid of humans, it's fine. And it was the moment when Nicholas was curious about what it means to have a spiritual presence. Suddenly, a gray rat appeared at the feet of the two. Seeing this, Pax quickly picked up the rat and held it in his hands. Nicholas, you see, creatures like this one have spirit. Staring closely at the little rat, he added, "If you can understand me, nod your head." Sure enough, under the shocked gaze of Nicholas, the rat actually nodded its head under Nicholas's astonished gaze. Pax then instructed the rat, "Please go quickly, and tell Andrew that I am in danger here and need his help." The little rat listened and bowed respectfully to Pax. It ran swiftly towards the depths of the mountain. Watching the rat's fast movement, Nicholas was amazed. "This rat obeys you so well. Are you the legendary rat hero?" Upon hearing this, Pax immediately slapped Nicholas on the forehead. "You little rascal, are you itching for a fight? How dare you say I'm the rat hero?" As the two of them were playing around, the snowstorm intensified. Nicholas huddled against a large tree, shivering from the cold. "That rat is taking so long. I hope it didn't freeze to death on the way," he thought. But before he could finish his sentence, he heard sighs coming from behind him. They turned their heads to look. They saw a gigantic rat, 2.5 meters long, running swiftly towards them from the jungle. As it approached the two people, it leaped into the air suddenly. The rat transformed into Andrew's appearance. He landed slowly in front of Pax. Before Pax could speak, cold light erupted in Andrew's eyes. "Who bullied you, Pax?" Pax hurriedly smiled and thanked. "Thank you for your concern, Andrew. No one has bullied me. There is a strange matter I'd like to ask for your help." Pax then recounted the whole incident, telling everything. Andrew couldn't help but look serious after hearing. The dirt that even Pax couldn't find with compass can only mean that he hasn't awakened yet. But the guy from over 1,000 years ago, and with tens of thousands of people buried with it, if it becomes active, it won't be easy to deal with. Upon hearing this, Nicholas was suddenly shocked. "Are you saying that you also can't defeat the dirt in that tomb?" Andrew didn't expect Nicholas to look down on him so much. He couldn't help but glance at him proudly and said, "Even if so, I have been practicing diligently for 1,000 years. If that thing dares to come out tonight, I will make sure it won't return." After speaking, Andrew stomped his foot and roared in anger. A powerful demonic aura instantly spread out from him as the center, causing the surrounding land to tremble continuously. After a moment, countless rats broke through the snow and emerged from the ground, densely packed all over the entire mountain top. Their pairs of crimson eyes looked particularly eerie. Andrew, as the leader, looked at Nicholas with a smirk that was not quite a smile. "Who are you just looking down on? Tens of thousands of dry corpses, so what? They are not even enough to fill the gaps between my little ones." Upon hearing this, Nicholas quickly nodded. "I am really foolish. In terms of quantity, what kind of thing can have more rats?" After saying that, he turned around and led the group of rats towards the mine. "I will go and deliver this good news to Robert and Professor Martin. With your help, we can sleep peacefully tonight." In the wind and snow, Pax and Andrew quietly watched Nicholas walking away in the distance. At this moment, Andrew was puzzled why Pax didn't leave. Pax just smiled slightly. "I guess Andrew won't go to join the crowd over there. I might as well stay and accompany Andrew." Andrew, whose inner thoughts were guessed by Pax. He couldn't help but smile. But then it dimmed again. He sighed helplessly. "Pax, you guessed it right. Because of our origins, spiritual practice is not only the most difficult in all the mediums of immortals. We are also the most looked down upon by others. It's even difficult to find a spirit medium disciple. And no one invites us. We can't accumulate in virtue without doing good deeds. Under such a vicious cycle, our family cannot turn the tide for generations." Upon hearing Andrew's self-narrative, Pax couldn't help but wonder. He had only noticed Andrew's inherent inferiority complex and reluctance to interact with us normally. He hadn't expected there to be such a reason as well. At this point, he suddenly thought that he might be able to help him. The inner chapters of the Bio Pussy, which is part of my spiritual practice, contains the techniques of breathing and the 3 yuan escape. Would these be useful to you? If they are beneficial, I will explain them to you." Upon hearing this, Andrew was suddenly shocked. The inner chapters of the Biopussy, could it be that Pax inherits the lineage of Grayson Master? This made Pax scratch his head in confusion. "I don't know who Grayson Master is. This is just a gift from a Taoist." Andrew didn't expect Pax to be unaware. Grayson Master is a well-known figure in Taoism, but he doesn't have any lineage. His lifelong learning is recorded in the book Biopussy. Upon hearing Andrew's explanation, Pax was very happy to see that he could help him. "Since you are so good, then I will tell you now." However, Andrew quickly refused with a serious expression. "Wait, Pax! Do you know there's a saying among our people? The way must not be lightly shared. If shared lightly, it is not the way." But Pax did not understand the meaning. Seeing this, Andrew explained again. "Pax, you are unaware. Orthodox Taoism. They look down on us animal cultivators. Even if we achieve something in cultivation, at most we can only serve as mounts for others. Some powerful individuals believe that it is difficult to train wild animal cultivators. Once they succeed, they may cause trouble in the human world." After learning about Andrew's concerns, Pax instead laughed and said, "Don't worry, just study with peace of mind. I believe in your character. Furthermore, in my heart, all living beings in the world are equal without distinction of high or low status." Upon hearing this, Andrew couldn't help but show a touch of emotion on his face. He hadn't expected Pax to be so magnanimous. "It seems that I was being petty." And being enlightened by Pax's guidance, Andrew's eyes were suddenly filled with a crimson light. Then he suddenly raised his head and roared angrily towards the sky. The whole forest was shaken by this roar, trembling involuntarily. A powerful demonic aura instantly erupted from his body. Pax was stunned to see this. "Andrew, what's going on with you?" But before Pax could finish his sentence, Andrew immediately knelt down in gratitude towards him. "Thank you for your guidance, Pax. Not only has my cultivation advanced further, but it has also enhanced my foundation." Upon seeing this scene, Pax hurried forward to help Andrew up. However, the moment he touched him, he sensed a powerful force of destiny attached to Andrew. Before Pax could even ask, Andrew raised his finger towards the sky. "Today, I, Andrew, swear here that I will treat Pax as a master with respect. If there are any orders, Andrew will fulfill them even at the cost of breaking my body into pieces. If I violate my oath, I will never rest in peace." Just as Andrew finished speaking, a sudden thunder sounded in the sky, as if confirming this oath. Shortly after, Andrew summoned hundreds of large rats a few meters long to surround the 2 of them in the center, cutting off all surrounding breaths. Andrew stood up and saluted Pax again, saying, "I have ordered my children to guard the 4 directions and keep any creatures away. Now you can preach." Upon hearing this, Pax also clasped his hands and returned the salute. "You are still attentive." The 2 of them then sat cross-legged on the ground, beginning to absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to cultivate Taoist techniques as guided by the master. Gradually, a faint white mist emerged from their bodies. About 2.5 minutes later, Andrew exhaled a breath of impurity. His facial skin also became much fairer. Seeing this, Pax couldn't help but be overjoyed. "In just a short while, you have become even more handsome." Andrew also noticed this. "Thanks to Pax guiding me on the right path, I was able to receive the protection of Grayson Master. As a result, my spiritual practice has become much smoother. Naturally, my mind also feels refreshed and invigorated." But just as the 2 were talking, Nicholas suddenly rushed over from behind in a hurry. "Oh no, something has happened. You must come with me quickly." Pax was puzzled by what had happened. Could it be that the dirt in the ancient tomb had come to life? "It's not the dirt, but a person more annoying than dirt has arrived." After saying that, Nicholas grabbed Pax. They ran towards the mines. "Come with me and you'll see." Meanwhile, on this side of the mine, Professor Martin was arguing with a bald man. Behind the bald man stood two Taoist figures, an old one and a young one. Professor Martin, I see you are confused. The mines have uncovered the corpse wall, yet you didn't seek Isaiah's help, but instead went to ask for help from two inexperienced young boys. Or are you intentionally trying to cover up and deceive, attempting to pass through without being noticed? Upon hearing this, Professor Martin was furious. Stop accusing others unjustly. The excavation work has just begun, yet you are in a rush to report to the higher-ups. This shameless act of seeking credit is something only you are capable of. Just as the two were arguing, the young Taoist on the side quickly stepped forward to stop them. Professor Martin, don't be angry. Bo also means well. He's afraid that you might be deceived by some phony and pretentious scammers. These words happened to be heard by the arriving packs, and instantly ignited the anger in their hearts. What do you mean by calling us newcomers pretentious scammers? Are you talking about us? Nicholas looked puzzled by the words. What does the bald man mean by what behind the ears? Pax, on the other hand, snorted coldly. He's suggesting that we are inexperienced like infants. He's not capable of mocking us. Nicholas was immediately furious upon hearing this. He grabbed the bald man by the collar. Who do you think you are looking down on? Believe me, I can turn you into a pig head. Upon hearing this, the bald man trembled in fear. Let go of me, you brat, or I'll call the police. Just at this moment, the young Taoist who was standing behind slowly approached. Where did the country bumpkin come from? If you want to fight, I'll accompany you. Saying that, he swiftly came to Nicholas's front. He grabbed his thumb and twisted it hard backwards. Nicholas immediately started screaming in pain. Ouch, ouch, ouch. Pax was furious at the sight. Then his body turned into a shadow. He quickly flashed in front of Taoist. He grabbed his arm and twisted it gently upwards. There was a cracking sound. Taoist's arm was nearly deformed. Apologize to my brother, or I will disable this hand of yours. Taoist was in pain, sweating profusely. But he still defiantly threatened Pax. If you disable my hand, you won't have an easy time either. Upon hearing that, Pax immediately increased the strength and twisted harder. Hearing this, Taoist screamed in pain. He saw that his arm was about to be broken by Pax. At this moment, a Taiji floating hand technique swept across Pax's wrist. Without waiting for his reaction, Taoist had already seized his wrist. Forgive others when you should, but before Taoist could finish speaking, a white mist suddenly swept towards Taoist. A dark figure slowly emerged from the smoke. Then a sharp claw reached out from the black mist and grabbed Taoist. Just based on your level of spiritual cultivation, you dare to attack Pax. I think you're tired of living. Believe it or not, I will make sure you can't escape from this vast mountain range. Seeing Andrew the Taoist, one couldn't help but be shocked. You turn out to be the rat among the 5 great immortals. Professor Martin saw that both sides were about to come to blows. He hurriedly pulled the Taoist aside to act as a mediator. All right. Let's all take a step back for the sake of the peace wall. This matter will pass. Upon hearing this, Nicholas couldn't help but snort coldly. Let's go! If they do not appreciate our presence, there are others who will. They will come crying to us for help later. After saying that, the 3 of them turned and walked away. Professor Martin hurriedly caught up. After all, he was the one who invited them. I'm really sorry for not handling the matter properly. Nicholas was so angry at the words that he was fuming. Professor Martin, you don't need to apologize. It's not like you're talking nonsense. Pax also knows Professor Martin's difficulties. He pulled out a package of incense ashes from his pocket. He stuffed it into Professor Martin's hand. You must carry this with you at all times. It could save your life at a critical moment. Professor Martin is extremely grateful. Thank you so much. I'm sorry for causing trouble. After saying that, he waved goodbye to Pax and the others. Be careful on your way back. We haven't gone far yet. Pax still feels uneasy in his heart. So he turned to Andrew and said, Andrew, I need to trouble you to observe the ancient tomb more closely in secret. I'm afraid that if the ghost in the tomb wakes up, the Taoist won't be able to handle it, and many people will die tragically." Upon hearing this, Andrew just smiled faintly. "Pax, rest assured that I will continue to observe in secret. Besides, that Taoist has some ability. If he really can't deal with that ghost, it won't be too late for us to take action." Andrew did not respond after mentioning Pax. He just looked solemnly towards the direction of the ancient tomb in the mine. I always feel that this matter is not that simple. After Pax and the others left, the bald man became arrogant again. "I said these two kids have issues. As soon as you two arrived, they got scared and ran away." Upon hearing this, Professor Martin was immediately furious. "You've chased people away with your anger. Yet you have the nerve to spew such vicious words." But before Professor Martin could finish speaking, suddenly, a disdainful voice came from behind them. "Who dares to insult my son?" When it was Gabriel, he quickly stepped forward to flatter. "What wind blew you here?" But Gabriel did not respond. He slapped Bald Man directly on the face. "It's you who bullied my son and his brother." Bald Man was stunned by this slap. He started to stutter while speaking. "Those two are your sons and nephews, aren't they, sir?" Gabriel got angrier and burst into a rage. "I am using my own money to provide food and drinks for you. I am letting you use the excavator and dump truck for free. It's not that I am afraid of you, but out of respect for your service to the country. Yet, you are not thankful. I can overlook that. But you even bully my son. From now on, I will not lend you the machinery. You can dig slowly with your hands." After saying this, Gabriel waved his hand and called all nearby workers to leave. The workers who learned the news at the archaeological site were also very angry. They were all local villagers who had been taken care of by Gabriel on weekdays. They didn't expect these experts, who came from above, would look down on people so much, even to the extent of insulting and hitting them. Outraged, they turned and left. The Taoist couldn't help but sigh at the situation. "We didn't mean it that way." Upon seeing this, Bald Man quickly caught up. "Wait, listen to my explanation." Gabriel, however, forcefully shook off his hand. "Go away and stop bothering me." Bald Man stood still in disbelief, wondering how things had come to this. Professor Martin next to him let out a disdainful snort. "You made this mess yourself, so clean it up yourself. I want nothing to do with it." Taoist also scolded. "It's all because of your youthful recklessness, little Taoist." But little Taoist muttered quietly, "I didn't know that kid was the big boss's son." After they returned to school. After this incident, Nicholas changed his usual carefree demeanor and started studying hard. He even made fewer spelling mistakes in his love letters. But just at that moment, the classroom door suddenly slammed open. Ian rushed in, looking flustered. William was hit by Damien while on duty. "Hurry and go check on them." Upon hearing this, Nicholas instantly became extremely angry. "Daring to bully my brother, I see that person is seeking death." They quickly ran towards the playground as they spoke. But Pax was very confused. "What kind of person is this Damien? We didn't offend him." Nicholas, on the other hand, disdainfully replied, "I know this guy. He's just a wimp who relies on his dad's high-ranking position to act arrogantly." After listening, Pax became even more puzzled. If his dad is a high-ranking official, why would he come to study in our town? I heard that he got a girl pregnant in the city. That's why he came to our town, to avoid the scandal. He's just someone who dares to do, but not to admit.